Commander Jace Ryland stood on the wide landing platform of the Valyrian capital, surrounded by bright silver towers that touched the clouds. Moments earlier, an agreement had been signed between the leaders of the two worlds. The long conflict between humans and Valyrians had finally ended, not with more fighting, but with a fragile understanding that both sides needed peace more than anything else. According to ancient Valyrian tradition, the winning side had the right to choose a symbolic peace pledge. A respected member of the other side who would stay with them for 1 year to show trust and unity. Even though humans did not normally follow such customs, they agreed to honor it for the sake of a calm future. Everyone waited to see what Commander Jace would decide. He was known for his calm mind, his careful thinking, and his rare ability to stay respectful even in difficult situations. Many expected him to choose one of the Valyrian warrior princesses, strong, confident young women who had trained all their lives to represent their empire with pride. Choosing one of them would be expected. Choosing one of them would show power and balance. But Jace had something else in mind. Across the platform, the Valyrian royal family stood in a long row, dressed in their shimmering robes. Among them were the famous warrior princesses, tall, confident, and steady like statues carved from marble. They stood in bright armor that reflected the sun. Yet Jace's eyes did not rest on any of them. They moved past the polished steel, past the proud expressions, and stopped at the far end of the line, where someone much smaller stood quietly, almost hidden. Princess Lyra. She looked nothing like her royal sisters. Her posture was gentle. She kept her hands folded in front of her, almost as if she wanted to take up less space. Her eyes were soft, looking at the ground rather than the crowd. A thin silver circlet rested on her head, but she wore no armor, only a light robe that moved with the wind. Many people in the crowd barely noticed her, and those who did whispered among themselves. Lyra was known across her world as the quiet princess, the one who had never trained for combat, the one who often stayed indoors, living a peaceful and quiet life. When the royal announcer asked Jace to make his choice, he stepped forward without hesitation. "I choose Princess Lyra." The entire platform fell silent. People looked at one another, unsure if they had heard correctly. Even the royal family froze, their expressions turning from confidence to confusion. Lyra herself blinked slowly, surprised. She pointed at herself, as if to ask, "Me? Are you certain?" The announcer repeated his words, unable to hide the surprise in his voice. "Commander Jace Ryland chooses Princess Lyra of Valyria." A wave of murmurs moved through the crowd. Human officers exchanged puzzled looks. Some wondered if Jace understood the tradition correctly. Others wondered if he made a mistake. The Valyrians, on the other hand, looked both shocked and strangely worried. Many believed Lyra was too gentle for such an important role. She had never traveled far from home, never spoken at large events, and certainly never lived among humans. But Jace stood calm and firm, his expression steady. Princess Lyra stepped forward slowly. Her steps were small, almost hesitant. The closest thing she had experienced to a ceremony like this was a quiet festival or a family gathering. Now she was placed at the center of attention for something she had never imagined. When she reached Jace, she gave a polite bow, her voice barely above a whisper. "I will follow the tradition," she said softly. "If it brings peace, I will do my part." There was no fear in her tone, but there was a gentle uncertainty. She was stepping into a world she knew nothing about. Jace offered her a respectful nod. "Thank you, Princess Lyra. I promise you will be treated as a guest of honor." Lyra looked faintly surprised. She had expected formal words, not kindness. A soft breeze moved across the platform, carrying the sound of distant crowds still whispering. The treaty had been signed, but it was this moment that many citizens would talk about for days. Why choose the quietest princess? Why pick the one who seemed the least prepared for such responsibility? Jace did not explain himself. He simply guided Lyra toward the human shuttle waiting nearby, his steps steady and his expression unreadable. For the entire walk, Lyra felt the eyes of thousands on her. She walked carefully, her robe fluttering around her ankles. She did not speak, but her mind was full of questions. Why me? Why not one of my sisters? Why would a human commander choose someone like me, a princess, with no training, no strength, and no special skill that anyone else could see? Her sisters watched her quietly from the platform. Their expressions were difficult to read. Some looked relieved, perhaps glad they were not the ones chosen for a year-long stay with another civilization. Others looked confused or even concerned. Lyra had always been the gentlest among them, the one who preferred books over grand events, the one who chose kindness over recognition, and now she was chosen for one of the most important, symbolic roles in their empire's traditions. When Jace and Lyra reached the shuttle, a human officer opened the door for them. Lyra stepped inside slowly, taking a deep breath as she looked at the unfamiliar interior. Everything looked strange to her, from the smooth walls to the glowing control panels. Jace noticed the way she examined everything with quiet curiosity. If anything feels uncomfortable, just tell me, he said gently. We will travel at a slow and steady pace. Lyra nodded. She sat on the cushioned seat, folding her hands in her lap. Jace sat across from her, observing her with calm eyes, but saying nothing. He wanted her to settle in, to feel less overwhelmed. As the shuttle lifted off the ground, the city below them grew smaller and smaller. Lyra watched the silver towers disappear beneath the clouds. It was the first time she had left Valeria's capital. Already she felt the weight of a new world beginning around her, back on the platform. Leaders from both sides kept exchanging whispers. Some believed Jace had chosen Lyra for strategic reasons. Some thought he was testing the Valerians. Others believed he simply felt sympathy for her. But the truth was far more complex. As the shuttle traveled toward the human starship waiting in orbit, Jace allowed himself to remember something he had never spoken about publicly. A memory from the past, blurry but important. It was linked to a strange feeling he had experienced during the last day of the conflict, a gentle, calming presence that had helped him stay conscious when others could not. Most people did not know about it, and Jace himself only understood a small part of it. But there was one thing he knew for certain. He had sensed that same presence again when he saw Lyra standing at the end of the royal line. Something about her felt familiar, comforting, and deeply connected to the unanswered questions he carried. And although he did not know how, he believed Lyra was connected to the mystery he had been trying to understand since the incident that changed his life. He chose her not because she was weak. He chose her because something within her felt important, something quiet, gentle, and powerful in a way no one else could see. As the shuttle continued upward, Lyra looked at Jace with calm curiosity. "Commander," she said softly, "why did you choose me?" Jace paused for a long moment. He looked at her not with superiority, but with a thoughtful, respectful expression. "I chose the person I believed was right," he said, "even if others don't understand it yet." Lyra didn't fully understand his answer, but she nodded politely. She didn't need all the details yet. All she knew was that her life was about to change completely. And so, the quiet princess and the thoughtful commander began a journey neither of them expected, one that would uncover truths hidden on both sides of their worlds. Princess Lyra's first morning on the human starship began quietly. The room she stayed in was simple but warm, with soft lights that changed gently with the hours. The bedding was comfortable, and the air carried a clean smell that reminded her of fresh rain. She woke slowly, taking a moment to understand where she was. For a brief second, she thought she was still in her room in Valeria, the quiet chamber where she used to read books and watch the sunrise through her crystal window. But when she sat up and saw the metallic walls and the small observation window showing distant stars, she remembered everything. She was now living among humans. In a place far from home, Lyra took a deep breath and tried to steady her thoughts. She had promised to honor the peace tradition, and no matter how unfamiliar everything felt, she wanted to do her best. She dressed carefully in the clothes the humans had prepared for her, simple, soft fabric in a gentle blue shade. The color calmed her. A soft chime sounded from the door. "Princess Lyra," came a calm voice. "This is Officer Myra. May I enter? Lyra quietly said yes. The door slid open, and Officer Mira stepped inside with a warm smile. Mira was one of the friendliest humans Lyra had met so far. She had kind eyes and spoke in a gentle tone that made Lyra feel safe. "Good morning," Mira said. "Commander Jace would like to give you a tour of the starship, if you feel ready." Lyra nodded. "Yes, I would like that." Mira smiled wider. "Wonderful. He is waiting for you in the observation hall." Lyra followed her through the hallway. The ship felt like a living maze. Long corridors, glowing panels, soft humming machines she didn't understand. She tried to memorize each turn, each color, each sound. Humans moved around them, some carrying digital tablets, others engaged in quiet conversations. A few nodded respectfully at Lyra as she passed, but most simply watched with curiosity. After all, it was not common to have a Valerian princess aboard a human vessel. When they reached the observation hall, Jace was standing near the transparent wall looking out into the stars. His hands were behind his back, and his posture was steady but relaxed. When he heard Lyra enter, he turned and offered a polite nod. "Good morning, Princess Lyra. I hope you rested well." "Yes, thank you," she said softly. "The room is very peaceful." Jace seemed pleased. "I'm glad to hear that. I want you to feel comfortable here." The observation hall was breathtaking. A wide glass window stretched from floor to ceiling, showing endless stars that glittered like scattered diamonds. Lyra stepped closer slowly, her eyes widening. She had never seen the universe from such a view. Her home planet was beautiful, but she had always watched the sky from the ground, not from above it. "It feels endless," she said quietly. "It is," Jace replied, "but it's also full of places waiting to be understood." There was something thoughtful in his voice, something deeper than simple admiration for the stars. Lyra glanced at him, sensing that he was a person who carried many unspoken thoughts. Jace walked beside her and began to explain the different areas of the ship, the research labs, the living quarters, the gardens maintained for fresh air, and the learning center where she could explore human culture. Lyra listened carefully, asking small questions now and then. Her voice was soft, but her curiosity was sincere. As they walked, she noticed how the ship's crew observed Jace. They respected him deeply. Whenever he passed, people straightened, nodded, or smiled with quiet admiration. Lyra felt a bit shy walking beside someone so respected at one point, as they walked through a quiet hallway. Lyra gathered enough courage to ask a question she had been holding since the ceremony. "Commander, may I ask something?" "Of course," he said. "Why did you choose me?" Everyone seemed surprised. Even my family was surprised. Jace slowed his steps slightly, as if choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes the right choice doesn't look obvious to others. I chose you because something told me you were important to the path of peace. You have a calm presence. You carry kindness in a way few people do." Lyra looked down, her cheeks warming. She was not used to compliments. She had spent most of her life hearing that she was too soft, too quiet, too gentle for royal duties. Jace's words felt different. They felt sincere, Jay continued. "And there is something else, something I'm still trying to understand. During the last day of the conflict, when I felt faint and confused, I sensed something calming, a feeling I couldn't explain. Later, when I saw you standing with your family, I felt that same presence again." Lyra blinked. "You sensed me." "It sounds strange," Jace said with a small smile. "But yes." Lyra had no idea how she could have influenced anything from far away. She had never left the palace grounds. She had never used any skill that could reach someone across distance. But she didn't doubt Jace's sincerity. Something deeper was happening, something she had not yet discovered, as they continued the tour. Lyra noticed how humans interacted differently compared to her people. Valerians often spoke formally, with strict gestures and perfect posture. Humans were more relaxed. Some laughed softly as they talked. Others smiled openly. They felt more expressive, more casual, almost more warm. Lyra found herself slowly relaxing because of it. Later, Ish guided her to the quiet library section of the ship. Rows of digital shelves appeared on the walls, filled with stories from different human cultures. Lyra reached out to touch one of the tablets, watching as it lit up to show a painting of a forest. "You can read anything you like here," Jace said. "Books can help you understand our world." Lyra smiled gently. "I love reading. It always helps me feel safe." Jace nodded. "Then you'll enjoy this place." For a moment, they stood quietly, listening to the soft hum of the ship. Lyra felt something she had not expected to feel so soon: comfort. Humans did not treat her as someone weak or unimportant. They treated her like a valued guest, someone who belonged. When lunchtime arrived, Jace took her to the dining area. The room was bright, with long tables and friendly chatter. Crew members greeted her warmly, not as a stranger, but as someone they were eager to understand. Lyra tried human food for the first time, a mild soup, warm bread, and a sweet fruit drink. She smiled when she tasted the drink. "It's very pleasant," she said. The people around her were happy to see her enjoying it. Their smiles made her feel welcomed. After lunch, Officer Mira returned and offered to show Lyra the indoor garden. It was a beautiful space filled with green plants, soft lights, and the gentle sound of flowing water. Lyra walked slowly among the plants, touching the leaves with delicate fingers. The scent of flowers reminded her of the gardens back home. "This place is lovely," she whispered. Mira smiled. "Many crew members come here when they need quiet time." "You're welcome here any time." Lyra sat on a small stone bench, watching the water flow. She closed her eyes for a moment and breathed deeply. The more time she spent on the ship, the more she sensed a soft humming in the air, not from the machines, but from the people around her. A feeling of calm hope, like everyone was relieved that peace had arrived. Yet beneath that hope, she sensed something else. A small thread of hidden worry. Not dangerous, but quietly heavy. It came especially from Commander Jace. When she rejoined him in the evening, she noticed the thoughtful look in his eyes. He stood near a digital screen showing reports, but his attention seemed elsewhere. "You seem troubled," she said carefully. Jace looked at her, surprised she had noticed. "Just thinking about old memories." Lyra hesitated, then sat in a chair near him. "If you ever want to talk, I will listen." Her words were simple, but they touched something deep in him. He had spent so long carrying his questions alone that he almost forgot what it felt like to have someone offer comfort without expecting anything in return. "Thank you," he said softly. "Maybe one day I will." As the lights dimmed into evening mode, Lyra returned to her room. She lay on her bed, staring at the stars beyond the window. She thought about Jace's quiet worry, about the calming presence he felt before, about her role in the peace treaty. Something inside her whispered that her gentle nature, something she had always seen as a weakness, was about to become important in ways she didn't yet understand. She was not just a symbol of peace. She was part of a truth waiting to be discovered. Princess Lyra's days on the human starship continued with a gentle rhythm. Every morning she woke to the soft glow of the lights and the quiet hum of the engines. Every afternoon she either explored the ship, read books in the library, or spent time in the indoor garden. And every evening she met with Commander Jace, who patiently answered her questions and helped her understand human culture. At first, Lyra thought she was simply adjusting to her new environment. But slowly, she began to notice something unusual, a deep connection forming between her emotions and the emotions of the people around her. It was not a loud or sudden feeling. It was soft, like the first touch of sunlight after a long night. She sensed small shifts in the mood of the crew, changes in their thoughts, tiny waves of hope or worry. One day in the garden, she sat quietly on her favorite bench while crew members passed through on their breaks. She closed her eyes, letting her mind drift. Without meaning to, she sensed a warm glow from a nearby worker, happiness mixed with excitement. He had received a message from home. A few minutes later, she sensed something else from another passerby, gentle sadness, like someone missing a friend. Lyra did not hear their thoughts. She only felt soft echoes of their emotions, like quiet ripples in a peaceful lake. She did not understand how she could sense these things, but the feelings came naturally, as if they had always been there, waiting to be noticed. When Commander Jace met her that evening, she observed him carefully. He stood beside a screen filled with reports, yet he carried a calm but heavy sense of thoughtfulness. Lyra could feel it even before he spoke. "Princess," he said, "are you enjoying the daily activities?" "Yes," she replied. "Your people have been very kind." Jace sat in a nearby chair looking thoughtful. "I'm glad. You seem more comfortable now." Lyra hesitated, then said softly, "Commander, may I ask something unusual?" "Of course. Do you ever feel moods around people?" she asked. "Like quiet feelings or gentle thoughts?" Jace looked slightly puzzled. "Do you mean reading expressions or understanding tone?" "No," Lyra said gently. "Not by watching or listening, I mean. Feeling emotions as if they were small waves in the air." Jace leaned forward slightly, curiosity filling his eyes. "Do you feel that often?" "A few times," she admitted. "More in the last days. It feels natural, but I do not understand it." Jace remained quiet for a moment. The ship's lights reflected softly in his eyes as he studied her, not with suspicion, but with honest interest. "Lyra," he said slowly, "may I tell you something I've kept quiet for a long time?" She nodded. "Before the treaty," Jace said, "I experienced something strange. My team and I were in a difficult situation, and the people around me were anxious. But then something happened. I felt a calming presence, as if someone far away was easing my fear. A gentle emotion that helped me stay conscious and steady." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "It felt just like what you describe." Lyra listened closely. She felt a soft ache in her chest, a gentle sadness buried deep within him. Something he carried from past days. "Commander," she said quietly, "may I try something?" He nodded. Lyra closed her eyes and breathed slowly. She didn't force anything. She simply let her mind drift the way it had in the garden. She focused on the sense around Jace's steady strength, the quiet thoughts. The hints of worry held beneath his calm appearance. A small warmth moved through her, almost like sunlight spreading slowly. When she opened her eyes, Jace was watching her carefully. "What did you do?" he asked softly. "Nothing special," she said. "I just relaxed and let myself feel." Jace studied her with renewed understanding. "Princess, I think you may have a natural ability. Something rare. Something your people may not fully recognize." Lyra shook her head gently. "My family always said I was simply too sensitive, too emotional, too quiet." "Maybe they misunderstood you," Jace replied. "Maybe what they thought was weakness is actually a gift." Lyra looked away, processing his words. She had never considered that possibility. At home, emotions were considered a distraction. The Valerian royal family valued strength, confidence, and sharp decision-making. Lyra's gentle nature had always made her seem different. She was not ignored, but she was never seen as someone important for major decisions. But now, here on this ship, her quiet nature was not a burden. It was something that made people relax around her. Something that allowed her to understand those she spoke to. Something that made her presence comforting. That night, Lyra returned to her room with new thoughts blooming in her mind. She lay on her bed, staring at the stars outside her window. The stars did not speak, yet she felt their quiet company. Slowly, gently, she began to understand that her ability to feel emotions was not a simple habit, it was something deeper, something she was born with. Over the next few days, Lyra's ability became clearer. She noticed it during conversations, during quiet moments in the hallway, or when she passed by a group of crew members. When someone felt worry, she sensed a small tightening in the air. When someone felt hope, the atmosphere grew warmer. When someone was tired, she felt a soft heaviness. She never told anyone except Jace. She didn't want to make the crew uncomfortable or draw unnecessary attention. One evening, Jace invited her to join him in the research room. The walls were filled with glowing screens and floating diagrams. Scientists worked in quiet concentration, but when they saw Lyra, they greeted her warmly. Jace led her to a small table with 2 seats. "Lyra," he said, "there is something I've been researching for months. I think you can help me understand it." Lyra sat carefully. "What is it?" Jace pulled up a floating display showing gentle waves and patterns, These readings measure emotional responses, human and Valerian. We study how the mind reacts to stress and calm emotions. Lyra studied the patterns. They pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. When you first told me about your ability, Jace continued, I remembered something important. Your people have a rare trait among a few royal family members. It's not about strength or training. It's about sensitivity. But it's hardly spoken of because your society values firmness and discipline. Lyra nodded slowly. She had heard whispers of sensitives, individuals who felt emotions deeply, but the topic was rarely discussed. People often treated it as something unimportant. I believe, Jace said gently, that you are one of them. Lyra's breath caught. She had never thought she could be part of something rare. What does that mean? She asked softly. It means your gentle nature is not a weakness, Jace explained. It's a natural ability to connect with emotions. You may even be able to influence states of calm when others feel stressed. Not by force, simply by being yourself. Lyra looked down at her hands. So, the reason I feel others' emotions is because of this trait. Yes, Jace said. And it might also explain the calm feeling I sensed during the final days before the treaty. You may have influenced me without knowing. Lyra's heart fluttered. She had never imagined she could affect someone far away. Yet the more she thought about it, the more it made sense. She had always felt strange emotions on certain days without understanding where they came from. Maybe she had been sensing distant feelings without realizing it. Princess. Jace said gently, you may have a unique connection to emotions. A quiet strength that could help many. Lyra felt her throat tighten slightly. Not from sadness, but from a warm sense of purpose she had never felt before. I never thought I could be useful, she whispered. Jace looked at her with calm sincerity. You already are, Lyra's eyes softened. A soft glow of understanding spread through her chest. For the first time in her life, she felt like her gentle heart made sense. Like her quiet way of being had meaning. Like she was not an outsider among her people, she was simply different. In a way that mattered. The more she spent time with Jace, the more she realized he wasn't just curious about her. He was trying to solve something important, something connected to emotional understanding. Something hidden in old records, something he could never fully explain until now. And Lyra, with her quiet sensitivity, was the missing part of the puzzle. As the days passed, Lyra and Jace grew closer, not in a romantic way, but in a thoughtful companionship. He shared his questions, and she shared her feelings. He listened without judgment. She understood without pressure. Together, they discovered something neither of them expected. Lyra's gentleness was a quiet strength that had been overlooked for years, and Jace's steady presence was helping her see the truth of herself. Their partnership was just beginning. But already it carried the promise of something larger than both of them, something that could change the future of both worlds. When the sun rose the next morning, the world looked calm, but inside, everything felt different. It was the kind of morning where the air felt quiet, almost as if it knew something important had changed during the night. Even the birds outside seemed softer, their chirping gentle instead of loud. It felt like the universe was giving space for thoughts to settle, for the heart to breathe again. The mind was still full, though. It replayed every moment from the day before, trying to understand what was happening and what it all meant. Sometimes life brings a shift so slowly you barely notice it, and sometimes it arrives like a sudden wave, touching everything at once. That was exactly how this moment felt. Something had shifted. But it wasn't clear what shape it would take. There was a quiet feeling inside, part confusion. Part hope, part worry, part curiosity. It was strange to feel so many emotions at once, like colors mixing on a palette. When you look too closely, they seem messy. But when you step back, you realize they're forming a picture you haven't fully understood yet. The morning moved slowly. Every simple action felt like it carried some deeper meaning, washing the face, looking in the mirror, making tea. It was almost like the mind expected something magical to happen, something that would explain everything. But nothing dramatic happened. Just the soft steam rising from the cup and the distant sound of life waking up outside still. Even in the normal things, there was a sense of something new. Not exactly joy, not exactly fear, just a quiet awareness. It felt like the moment before a story begins to change direction. It wasn't clear what direction it would go, but something inside already knew that things were not the same anymore as the day continued. Thoughts kept drifting back to the same person, the same conversations, the same unexpected moments that brought all this confusion. It's funny how a single connection can make such a big difference. How someone's presence can feel like a light turning on in a room you didn't realize was dark. There was no plan for such a connection, no preparation, no warning. It simply happened. And sometimes, the most meaningful things come exactly like that, quietly, naturally, without any effort. That's what made it special, but it also made it confusing. When something feels so genuine, the heart wants to trust it. But when the mind starts asking too many questions, things get complicated. All day, there was a quiet tug-of-war happening inside, one side wanting to hold on to the warmth of the moments shared, the other side reminding that nothing was certain. But maybe that uncertainty itself was part of the beauty. Not everything in life needs to be clear right away. Some things deserve time, patience, and space to grow. Later in the afternoon, there was a moment when everything became still again. Sitting near the window, watching the sky shift from bright blue to soft orange, it became clear that the heart was trying to understand something deeper. It wasn't just about what happened. It was about what it meant. Was it the beginning of something new? Or was it just a moment to appreciate and then let go? The honest answer was, no one knew yet. But that was okay. Life doesn't always give answers immediately. Sometimes, it simply gives feelings, and your job is to listen to them without forcing them into boxes. Maybe the heart needed time to learn what this connection truly was. Maybe the person who caused all these thoughts was meant to play an important role. Or maybe they came only to teach a lesson that would reveal itself later. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain. The feeling wasn't a mistake. Even if it brought confusion, it also brought a sense of being alive. It reminded the heart that it could still feel deeply, still hope, still dream. And that alone made the moment worth holding. Evening arrived quietly. The lights in the room glowed softly, and everything felt calm again. The worries that had felt heavy in the morning were still there, but they no longer felt overwhelming. Instead, they felt like part of the journey, natural, expected, even necessary. And then, almost without thinking, the mind wandered back to certain memories that made the heart warm again. A laugh, a smile, a simple message, a tiny moment of understanding little things that somehow meant so much. Sometimes the smallest moments stay with you the longest. They carve a space inside you, a place you return to when you need comfort. Maybe that was why this connection felt so strong. It wasn't about big promises or perfect words. It was about the small honesty in the way things felt. It was about comfort. It was about the peace that came from knowing someone saw you, even in ways you didn't fully see yourself. That kind of presence is rare. As the night sky darkened, something softly settled inside. The confusion didn't disappear, but it changed shape. Instead of feeling like a storm, it felt like standing at the shore, watching waves come and go, not afraid of them, not trying to stop them, just letting them move naturally. Maybe this was the real lesson. Not to rush, not to overthink, not to force meaning where it hasn't fully formed. Just to breathe, to feel, to allow things to unfold at their own pace. Before sleeping, one last thought lingered. Whatever this was, whatever it was becoming, it deserved honesty, patience, and care. It deserved a chance to grow naturally, without fear or pressure. And the heart felt ready for that, ready to see where this path might lead, ready to embrace whatever comes next, ready to feel, even if feeling meant facing uncertainty. Because sometimes, the most beautiful chapters begin when you simply allow your heart to open slowly, quietly, gently, without needing all the answers at once, and that gentle beginning was already happening. The next day began in a way that felt different, even though everything around looked the same. The same room, the same walls, the same window, the same sky outside. But inside, something had clearly changed. It was a quiet shift, the kind that didn't make noise, but still touched every corner of the heart. It was strange how a simple set of thoughts, a few conversations, and a few moments could change the feeling of an entire day. There was a soft restlessness inside, as if the heart wanted to talk, but didn't know what to say. Sometimes emotions come like visitors. You know they are there, but you don't know what they want. That morning felt exactly like that. Something inside wanted to be understood, but it stayed quiet, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. As time passed, the day moved ahead slowly, each hour carrying its own questions. There was a constant pull toward the thoughts of someone who had silently become important. It wasn't clear when that happened, or how, or why, but it did. And now, that feeling was not something that could be ignored. Every memory, every little moment, every small conversation replayed again and again, as if the mind was trying to find something hidden inside them. Maybe a meaning, maybe a message, maybe a direction. But sometimes the heart creates meaning where none was planned. And sometimes it recognizes something special long before the mind catches up. In the afternoon, a calm moment arrived. Sitting alone, with no noise around, it became easier to think. The feelings that had been floating around started forming shape. It became clear that the confusion wasn't the real issue. The real issue was the fear of the unknown. The heart wasn't afraid of the feeling. It was afraid of what might come with it. Life has a way of making people cautious, especially when they've been through experiences that taught them to protect their emotions. And maybe that was the reason behind the hesitation. The heart wanted to trust the new feeling. The mind kept reminding it to slow down. But something inside whispered softly that this feeling was not a mistake. It was gentle, not rushed. It was warm, not overwhelming. It was peaceful, not chaotic. It didn't demand anything. It didn't force anything. It simply existed, quietly but powerfully. Sometimes, the most meaningful feelings are like that. They don't enter your life loudly. They appear softly. Like a sunrise you didn't realize you were watching until the sky is already glowing. As the day went on, small things kept reminding the mind of that presence. A word, a smile, an expression, a tiny moment. It was surprising how deeply these little things had settled inside. The heart found comfort in remembering them, even though it didn't fully understand why. That evening, the sky looked beautiful, painted with soft colors that blended into each other gently. Watching the sunset made everything feel a little easier, a little clearer. Nature always knows how to calm the heart without speaking a single word, and in that calmness, a realization came. Sometimes feelings don't need to be defined right away. They don't need labels. They don't need conclusions. They don't even need certainty. All they need is honesty. Honesty to admit that something feels. Different honesty to accept that the heart has found something it wasn't looking. For honesty to allow the feeling to exist without fear of what may come next. That realization brought a soft comfort. Not every emotion has to become a decision. Not every feeling needs an explanation. Some moments are meant to be lived one day at a time. And maybe this was one of those moments. Later that night, while lying in bed, the mind wandered again. It thought about how strange life can be. You meet so many people, and most of them pass by without leaving anything behind. But once in a while, someone appears who touches your heart in a quiet, unexpected way. They don't try to impress you. They don't try to change you. They just exist, and somehow their presence feels meaningful. It was becoming clear that this connection, whatever it was, had already left a mark. It was soft, but it was real, and that was enough for the heart to hold on to. The next morning brought a fresh wave of thoughts, but this time they didn't feel heavy. They felt lighter, as if the heart had made peace with its own confusion. Instead of questioning everything, it simply allowed itself to feel. There was a new kind of excitement inside, soft, warm, and gentle. The kind that makes ordinary moments feel special. The kind that makes you look at your phone a little longer, waiting for a message. The kind that makes you smile at memories no one else knows about. The kind that makes the day feel brighter even Nothing special has happened yet. And maybe that was the most beautiful part of all this. The feeling didn't depend on big gestures or dramatic moments. It grew quietly from simple conversations, small details, and natural comfort. Some connections are built exactly like that, not rushed, not forced, not planned. As the day continued, every moment felt more meaningful than before. The mind started noticing tiny things it had previously ignored. A small laugh, a thoughtful reply, a tiny moment of understanding. It was as if the heart had opened a new window, allowing more light in. There was still uncertainty, of course. No one knew what the future held. No one knew where this connection would lead. But for the first time, the uncertainty didn't feel scary. It felt like a story that was slowly beginning to write itself, and maybe that was enough. Toward the evening, a soft thought appeared. What if this feeling was not just a passing moment? What if it was the beginning of something meaningful, even if it wasn't clear yet? What if the heart had recognized something true before the mind? Life often surprises people with connections they never expected. Maybe this was one of those surprises. The best stories sometimes begin quietly, without warning. And maybe this story was preparing to unfold in its own gentle way as the night approached. There was a deep sense of calmness. The heart felt full, not with answers, but with hope. Hope that whatever this connection was, it would grow naturally. Hope that the uncertainty would eventually become clarity. Hope that the quiet bond would turn into something even more beautiful with time. And even if none of that happened, the feeling still mattered, because it reminded the heart how to feel again. It reminded the mind that not everything has to be perfect to be meaningful. It reminded the soul that sometimes the best moments are the ones that surprise you. The day ended with a quiet promise inside not to rush, not to fear, not to overthink, just to let the story unfold at its own pace. And deep within, the heart felt ready. Ready to see what tomorrow would bring, ready to listen to its own feelings, ready to trust the quiet warmth that had already become impossible to ignore. Whatever came next, the heart was open, and that alone was a beautiful beginning.